Have you ever looked at a fraction that seems like it's made up of more letters than numbers? You know, one of those giant, intimidating expressions? Well, that's a rational expression, and today we are going to make them simple. I promise, by the end of this, you'll realize they're just a beefed up version of the basic fractions you've been solving for years.
So, here's our plan. First, we're going to connect this whole idea back to something you already get. Then, I'm going to give you a foolproof, four-step method you can use every single time. After that, we'll run through some examples, I'll point out two super common traps to avoid, and finally, we'll talk about why this actually matters outside of your algebra class.
Okay, let's jump right in. The big secret to these things, it's not about learning a brand new skill. It's about applying a skill you already have to a new type of problem. You've been using this logic for a long, long time. This right here is the whole idea in a nutshell. Look at the left side, 6/8. What do? We find the common factor, which is 2, and we cancel it out to get 3/4. Simple, right? Now, look at the expression on the right. It looks way more complicated for sure, but the logic is exactly the same. We're just finding a common polynomial factor and canceling it out. Same principle, just a different playing field. So, how do we find those factors reliably every single time without guessing? Well, that's where this next part comes in. This is your roadmap, a simple four-step method that works for every single one of these problems. Here we go. It's a simple four-step dance. Step 1, you factor the top part, the numerator. Step 2, you factor the bottom part, the denominator. Yeah, this is where you'll use all those factoring skills you've been practicing. Step 3 is the satisfying part. You cancel out any factors that are identical on the top and bottom. And step 4, and listen up, because this is the one everybody forgets, you have to state the restrictions from the original denominator. We'll get into why that's so crucial in just a bit. Okay, before we go any further, I need you to burn this into your memory. This is the golden rule. You can only cancel factors. That means things that are being multiplied. You can never, ever cancel terms, things that are being added or subtracted. Seriously, if you remember this one rule, you will avoid 90% of the common mistakes. All right, theory's great, but let's see how this works in practice. It's time to get our hands dirty and put that four-step method to the test. We'll start with a simple one and work our way up. Let's start with a nice warm-up. We're going to simplify 6x squared over 9x. So what's our first step? That's right, we got to factor the top and the bottom. And just like that, steps 1 and 2 are done. The top, 6x squared, breaks down into 3x times 2x. And the bottom, 9x, becomes 3x times 3. See it? That common factor of 3x is just sitting there, waiting for us. Okay, on to steps 3 and 4. We cancel out that common 3x, which leaves us with a much cleaner 2x over 3. But hang on, we're not done. Step 4, we have to look back at the original denominator 9x. What value of x would make that 0? Well, 0 itself. So we have to add that little note, x cannot equal 0. Okay, let's level up a bit. This time we're dealing with trinomials. We need to simplify x squared plus 5x plus 6, all divided by x squared plus 2x. The process is exactly the same, but our factoring is going to be a little more involved. So let's factor. For the numerator, we need two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to 5. That's going to be a positive 2 and a positive 3. So we get x plus 2 times x plus 3. For the denominator, we can just pull out a greatest common factor, which is x, leaving us with x times x plus 2. And would you look at that? Our common factor is x plus 2. We cancel the x plus 2 from the top and bottom, and we're left with x plus 3 over x. Now for that crucial step 4. Look back at the original factored denominator, x times x plus 2. There are two values for x that would make it 0. If x is 0, the whole thing is 0. And if x is negative 2, that x plus 2 part becomes 0. So we have to list both restrictions. X can't be 0 and x can't be negative 2. All right, last one, and this one has a neat little trick inside it. We need to simplify 3 minus x all over x squared minus 9. Now, if you just glance at it, it doesn't look like anything is going to cancel, but there's something hiding in there. Here's the magic move. The denominator, x squared minus 9, is a difference of squares, so that's easy, x plus 3 times x minus 3. But the numerator, 3 minus x, notice how it's the exact opposite of x minus 3? We can actually factor out a negative 1, which lets us rewrite it as negative x minus 3. And boom, a common factor appears. Now we can cancel out the x minus 3 on the top and bottom. That leaves us with a negative 1 in the numerator and an x plus 3 in the denominator. And for our last step, we look at the original factored denominator, x plus 3, x minus 3, to find our restrictions. X can't be 3 and x can't be negative 3. And there we have it. We just used the exact same 4 steps to solve 3 very different looking problems.
Now, knowing the right moves is only half the battle. You also have to know which moves to avoid. So let's talk about the 2 biggest, most common traps that students fall into with these problems.
This slide shows, without a doubt, the number 1 mistake people make. On the left, in x plus 5 over 5, that 5 on top is a term. It's attached by addition. You cannot just cancel it out. That's illegal in the laws of math. But on the right, in 5x over 5, the 5 is a factor. It's attached by multiplication. That you can absolutely cancel. Understanding this difference is everything. The second big trap is forgetting about those domain restrictions. You get so excited about canceling something that you forget where it came from. But think about it. If the original expression had an x minus 2 on the bottom, plugging in 2 would break math, right? You'd be dividing by 0. Your final simplified answer has to have that exact same limitation. It must be equivalent to the original for all possible values.
So you might be thinking, okay, I get it, but why does this matter? When am I ever going to use this? Well, it turns out this is a fundamental skill for solving real-world problems, especially in fields like science and engineering. For example, take the lens equation from physics. This is used for designing everything from cameras to telescopes. If you want to rearrange this formula to solve for any one of those variables, you have to combine the fractions on the right side. And when you do that, you create a complex rational expression that has to be simplified. This isn't just a textbook exercise. It's a critical tool for working with real-world formulas.
So we've covered a lot, from seeing how this connects to simple fractions, to learning a 4-step method, to avoiding common traps. I'll leave you with just one final question to really lock it all in. What's that one critical rule, the golden rule you should never, ever forget when you're simplifying? Think about it. If you've got that answer, you're in great shape. Thanks for tuning in.